in a galaxy far larger than anyone could truly imagine. Most species had lived for thousands of years in a state of careful, cautious peace. Their civilizations had grown slowly, steadily, and safely. Worlds were carefully chosen for their gentle environments, their mild climates, and the lack of dangerous predators. Life had become almost predictable. For many of these species, the very idea of risk was almost terrifying. Their technologies were impressive. They could travel between stars, create massive habitats, and manipulate energy on incredible scales, but they had lost something important: toughness, resilience, and the ability to survive under extreme conditions. Most beings could not endure even mild danger without relying on complex tools or protective suits. They had forgotten what it meant to be truly tested by a world that demanded strength, intelligence, and adaptability to survive. Among these carefully controlled, fragile worlds, there was one planet that no one took seriously. To most alien civilizations, it was simply a rough, backward place, full of unpredictable and dangerous life. It was a planet that had always been hard to survive on, with extreme climates, violent storms, and a gravity that would crush most species immediately. Its forests were thick and filled with predators, its mountains jagged and merciless, and its oceans vast and unforgiving. Even the weather was considered a weapon, capable of destroying crops, homes, and lives without warning. Any being who tried to survive there would have to be clever, adaptable, and extremely resilient. The history of this world was violent, chaotic, and yet strangely persistent. The species had come and gone, cities had risen and fallen, and natural disasters had wiped out civilizations more than once. The planet did not forgive weakness, and its inhabitants learned quickly that survival was not a right, it was a constant struggle. Yet, despite these hardships, life endured. Something about this planet seemed to forge strength into its people. Those who survived did not just survive by luck. They survived through resourcefulness, intelligence, courage, and sometimes sheer stubbornness. They learned to fight, to endure, and to thrive under conditions that would break nearly any other species. This world was called Earth by its own inhabitants, but to the wider galaxy it had always been a curiosity, something to be ignored, ridiculed, or dismissed. Records that existed about Earth often painted it as dangerous, chaotic, and primitive. Any aliens who studied it usually concluded that any species from such a world could never advance to space travel without destroying itself first. Its people were thought to be violent, irrational, and incapable of cooperating on a scale large enough to build They were the ultimate Deathworlders, creatures shaped by a planet that tested them at every turn and rewarded only those who could endure. For centuries, the Galactic Council, the body that managed interstellar affairs among civilized species, had monitored planets like Earth. Most death worlds were ignored, considered dangerous and irrelevant. Others were carefully observed but never contacted. It was assumed that these worlds would either extinguish themselves or remain isolated, harmless but inconsequential. Earth was no exception. Reports about it were filed and archived, but few in the galaxy expected anything significant to emerge from such a harsh place. If the planet's species survived, it would likely remain confined to its own dangerous world. No one believed they could ever reach for the stars. Then, unexpectedly, everything changed. One day, sensors across multiple star systems picked up something unusual. A previously unregistered warp signature appeared from the region of space surrounding Earth. At first, analysts assumed it was some small experimental craft, perhaps an automated probe. Nothing from Earth had ever traveled that far, and certainly nothing with any serious technology. The idea that a Deathworld species could create advanced space vessels was dismissed as impossible. Yet the signature grew stronger. Instruments indicated a craft far larger than any exploratory ship, heavily armored, and emitting energy patterns inconsistent with anything previously catalogued from primitive species. As the readings became clearer, panic began to ripple through the Galactic Council. A species from a Deathworld had not only survived its hostile planet, but it had also managed to build starships capable of leaving the atmosphere and traveling through interstellar space. This was something no one had anticipated. A council convened emergency meetings, bringing together representatives from hundreds of civilizations. Many were frightened. Some dismissed it as a sensor error, refusing to believe that a species so fragile in theory could achieve something so extraordinary. Others began to speculate wildly about the intentions of this mysterious species. Could they be hostile? Could they attempt to conquer other worlds immediately upon entering space? Would their survival instincts make them unpredictable, dangerous, and uncontrollable? Meanwhile, the craft itself moved steadily through the void. Observers noted its design: massive shields, multiple layers of hull reinforcement, and engines capable of sudden bursts that no known Deathworld species had ever managed. It was clear to anyone paying attention that this was no accidental or primitive vessel. The ship was deliberately built for survival, endurance, and exploration. Every detail seemed to reflect a culture that understood danger intimately and respected it deeply. While other civilizations had sought comfort and safety for centuries, these builders had embraced challenge and risk as a way of life. When the human crew finally made contact, they did so in a calm, controlled manner. There was no aggressive attack, no threatening message, no demonstration of overwhelming power. Instead, their first transmission was polite, simple, and even diplomatic. The words themselves seemed carefully chosen to convey intelligence.com and confidence. Yet beneath the calm, the message carried an undeniable weight. These were not ordinary beings. They had survived unimaginable challenges on a planet that would kill most alien species. They had built a starship that could travel between stars, and now they had arrived in the wider galaxy, ready to be seen. This combination of calmness and capability stunned the Galactic Council. Entire fleets that had been preparing for hostile contact were suddenly uncertain. They had expected either fear or aggression, perhaps chaos, but not calculated precision and polite communication. Intelligence reports quickly highlighted other astonishing facts about these humans. They had endured extreme climates, famine, wars, and natural disasters that would have wiped out most other species. Their history was filled with repeated near extinctions, yet they had always adapted, survived, and even thrived. Many aliens were forced to admit, at least grudgingly, that they had underestimated the Deathworlders completely. The arrival of this species was more than a surprise. It was a revelation. The galaxy suddenly realized that the old assumptions about Deathworlders, about their unpredictability, their danger, or their incapacity were deeply flawed. The humans were strong, yes, but strength alone was not the full story. Their resilience, intelligence, and ability to act decisively in the face of overwhelming danger set them apart from anything the galaxy had previously known. The Council and other civilizations began to ask themselves uncomfortable questions. If humans had survived Earth, what else could they survive? If they could build starships on a death world, what else could they create? At this point, fear and curiosity spread equally among observers. Alien scholars and historians rushed to study every fragment of data available about Earth and its people. Diplomatic channels buzzed with speculation. Could these Deathworlders be allies, or were they a threat? How would a species that had endured so much react to the wider galaxy? Would their survival skills translate into aggression, or would they bring their resilience into peaceful exploration? The galaxy, which had once ignored Deathworlds, now had no choice but to pay attention. Every major civilization watched as the human vessel approached their systems. Fleets were mobilized, advisors prepared contingencies, and the Council prepared statements for the media and other species. Never before had the arrival of a single species created such a profound shift in galactic perception. Never before had the assumptions about life on dangerous planets been challenged so dramatically. Humans had arrived, not with destruction, but with the quiet assurance that they belonged among the stars. It was in this moment, the first contact, the careful observation, the growing realization of what humans had achieved, that the galaxy understood something essential. Strength was not just physical, survival was not just about fighting, and Deathworlders, the species no one expected to endure, were about to show the galaxy a way of life that combined toughness, intelligence, and determination in a way that had never been seen before. The stage was set, that humans had arrived, the galaxy had noticed, and the assumptions that had guided interstellar relations for millennia were about to be challenged. From this point on, every civilization would watch carefully, aware that something extraordinary had come out of a planet that no one expected to survive at all. After the humans had made their first approach into the wider galaxy, the reaction across interstellar civilizations was intense, complicated, and full of uncertainty. What had been a peaceful, predictable galaxy was suddenly thrown into chaos, not through war or aggression, but through the arrival of a species that no one had expected could survive the very planet they came from. Every council chamber, every strategic command center, and every intelligence hub was filled with debates, speculation, and a mix of fear and curiosity. No one had ever dealt with anything like this before, and that uncertainty made even the most experienced leaders nervous. The Galactic Council, which was responsible for keeping order and making rules for interstellar relations, convened emergency sessions. Normally, they dealt with disagreements over trade routes, disputes between planets, or rare military skirmishes. This, however, was entirely different. For the first time in centuries, they faced a species that had survived against impossible odds on a Deathworld, a planet so dangerous that any other civilization would have perished long before developing. Many council members were reluctant to even accept the reports. Some argued that sensors must be faulty, that the readings were exaggerated, or that the Earthlings' technology had been misinterpreted. Others, however, saw the danger clearly and argued that immediate precautions were necessary. The humans, meanwhile, were not aggressive. They did not fire weapons or make threats. Their first communications were simple, polite, and professional. Captain Elias Morgan and his team made careful, measured statements, requesting contact and offering peace. Yet even this calm, measured approach only heightened the tension. Civilizations that had grown fragile over centuries of safety and routine could not understand a species that combined extreme resilience with restraint. To many, the human's calmness was almost unnerving. It suggested confidence, intelligence, and capability, but also unpredictability. If they could survive Earth, what else could they endure? If they had built this starship, what else could they build? Reports from scouts and sensors only added to the alarm. Analysts studying Earth's history found records of extreme climates, deadly pandemics, massive wars, and natural disasters that had wiped out entire civilizations multiple times. Yet despite all these catastrophes, humans had not only survived, they had grown stronger. Every setback had been met with adaptation and ingenuity. Every challenge had forced them to become cleverer, more resourceful, and more determined. To the galaxy it seemed almost unnatural that a species so fragile in theory could develop such enduring strength in practice. Even more concerning to many council members were the humans' physical abilities. Their biology was capable of withstanding injuries and environmental stresses that would kill most other species outright. They could survive extreme heat and cold, endure high gravity, and recover from wounds that would be instantly fatal to most known life forms. Combined with their mental resilience and ability to strategize in moments of crisis, humans represented a level of unpredictability that no other civilization had encountered. The Deathworlders' existence challenged assumptions about what a species could achieve under harsh conditions. As these reports circulated, different factions within the galaxy reacted in various ways. Some saw the humans as a threat to be neutralized before they could expand. Militaries mobilized ships to intercept the human vessel if necessary, preparing for the possibility of a hostile species capable of surviving anything. Other factions, however, saw opportunity. They began to imagine alliances, trade possibilities, and access to human knowledge. Humans had survived disasters and wars that would have ended lesser species, so perhaps they possessed technologies or insights that could be shared. This created a complex atmosphere of both fear and fascination. No one knew whether to prepare for war or friendship. Amid this tension, the humans continued their deliberate, measured approach. Captain Morgan made sure all communications emphasized diplomacy and cooperation. Their messages contained offers to share knowledge about surviving extreme environments, agricultural techniques for harsh planets, and technologies for energy production and medicine. These offers were not presented as gifts, but as mutually beneficial exchanges. The humans understood that they were being observed, judged, and evaluated, and every action was carefully considered. Their calm confidence only reinforced the galaxy's curiosity and unease. Meanwhile, the Council began receiving intelligence from observers closer to the human vessel. These reports confirmed that the ship was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Its shields were capable of withstanding extreme energy fluctuations. Its engines allowed for precise maneuvering at speeds that were previously thought impossible for a vessel of its size. Every system had redundancy, every function had backup, and every crew member seemed to operate with skill and precision that suggested rigorous training and experience. This was not a species that stumbled into space by accident. This was a civilization that had prepared for survival on a scale that no one could have imagined. Despite their impressive capabilities, the humans showed no intention of using force. They navigated carefully, avoided collisions, and even sent warning signals to nearby fleets when their course might intersect with inhabited areas. The contrast between their strength and their restraint was striking. For centuries, the galaxy had assumed that a species capable of surviving a death world would be aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerous. Humans were none of these things. They were disciplined, careful, and surprisingly empathetic. The Council members struggled to reconcile these observations with their preconceived notions. Tension escalated further when some extremist factions decided to act. Certain species, convinced that humans posed an immediate threat, attempted to block their path and force them into a defensive position. These extremists believed that allowing humans to continue unchallenged would give them too much influence in the galaxy. They dispatched small fleets, hoping to intimidate or even attack if necessary. However, the humans did not respond with aggression. Instead, they maneuvered skillfully to avoid direct conflict, demonstrating both strategic intelligence and the ability to control potentially dangerous situations. This only deepened the galaxy's amazement and respect at the same time. Scientists and historians were poring over records of human history, trying to understand how a species could survive such a hostile homeworld. They studied the planet's climate extremes, blistering deserts, freezing tundras, violent storms, and frequent earthquakes, and saw that humans had not only survived but had adapted in ways that made them stronger. They looked at humanity's history of war, plague, and famine, and found that humans often emerged from catastrophe not weaker, but wiser, more inventive, and more united. This resilience, combined with the humans' ability to act thoughtfully, rather than impulsively, created a level of unpredictability that no council had ever encountered. In addition to physical and historical resilience, humans displayed remarkable social adaptability. Observers noticed that they could cooperate in ways that were highly organized yet flexible. In crises, humans could make quick decisions, delegate responsibilities efficiently, and adapt plans on the fly. They were capable of responding to unexpected challenges without panic, a trait that many alien species could not even comprehend. For the council and military leaders alike, this adaptability represented a new kind of strategic threat or opportunity. Humans were not easily manipulated, and their actions could not be predicted by the usual models of diplomacy or war. This combination of strength, intelligence, and restraint created a unique dilemma. The galaxy was simultaneously fascinated and fearful. Some leaders openly debated whether humans should be contained, studied, or even destroyed before they could spread further. Others argued that the humans could be allies, sharing knowledge, technology, and insights that could benefit multiple civilizations. In every discussion, one fact became increasingly clear: the humans had fundamentally changed the galaxy's perception of Deathworlders. What had once been assumed to be chaotic, violent, and uncontrollable was now seen as intelligent, disciplined, and capable of remarkable restraint. As these debates continued, the humans steadily moved through space, never raising weapons unless absolutely necessary, and even then, only in a defensive manner. Their actions consistently demonstrated a combination of confidence, skill, and a commitment to non-aggression. Every fleet that monitored them became aware that this was a species that would not be underestimated, not because of brutality or dominance, but because of their intelligence, resilience, and discipline. They had arrived not to conquer, but to be seen, and that alone was enough to make the galaxy pay attention. By the end of this period, the galaxy had entered a state of tense anticipation. Every civilization was watching the humans, trying to understand their intentions, capabilities, and potential impact. Scholars debated how they had survived Earth and developed advanced technology. Military strategists tried to predict how humans might behave in conflict. Diplomats considered what opportunities might arise from contact with a species that combined strength, intelligence, and restraint. Every observer, in some way, recognized that the arrival of humans was not merely an event. It was a turning point. It became clear that humans were not a typical Deathworld species. They were not mindless predators shaped only by survival. They were intelligent, strategic, and capable of cooperation on a scale that could challenge entire civilizations' assumptions about life and survival. Their approach to space, diplomacy, and even conflict was carefully measured, demonstrating foresight and judgment. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had to reconsider its understanding of what a species could achieve, how it could survive, and what role it might play in the broader cosmic community. The rising challenge, then, was not only about the humans themselves but about how the galaxy would respond. Could civilizations overcome their fear, embrace cooperation, and learn from this new species? Or would fear dominate, leading to confrontation and conflict? The humans' calm, deliberate, and capable approach meant that the galaxy had little choice but to watch carefully, evaluate every action, and adjust strategies on the fly. What had started as a simple observation of a distant planet had grown into a full-blown challenge to every assumption, policy, and long-standing belief in the galaxy. Every fleet in the vicinity, every council member, and every scientist realized that this was just the beginning. Humans had arrived, and they had already changed the galaxy's perception of strength, survival, and civilization. The rising challenge was clear. How would the galaxy respond to a species that had endured the impossible, survived the unthinkable, and now moved among the stars with quiet confidence and undeniable capability? The answer would come in time, but for now, the humans continued steadily, calmly, and purposefully. Every action, every message, and every observation added to the tension, curiosity, and anticipation. The galaxy had no choice but to pay attention, and the consequences of this attention would shape the future of interstellar relations for generations to come. The calm curiosity that had filled the galaxy up to this point soon gave way to tension, fear, and outright panic among some factions. For the first time in generations, the galaxy faced a species that had survived the Deathworld, built starships, and yet refused to act with the aggression most expected from such beings. The humans' measured approach had caused unease among civilizations used to predictable reactions, and some factions concluded that, if the humans were to remain unchecked, they could disrupt the delicate balance of power that had existed for centuries. This fear quickly escalated into direct action. Several species that felt threatened by the humans decided to intervene. They believed that the safest option was to intercept the human ship before it could reach populated systems or make alliances. This was a high-stakes gamble, a test to see how the humans would react under direct threat. They mobilized fleets, armed to the teeth with weapons capable of destroying entire cities in minutes, and moved to block the human approach. To these extremists, it was simple: either stop the humans now, or risk being dominated later. The humans, however, did not panic. Their ship moved with precision, its systems operating at peak efficiency. Captain Elias Morgan and his officers monitored the approaching fleets, calculated trajectories, and prepared defensive measures. They had faced countless dangers on Earth that would have killed the attacking species outright. Extreme weather, wild animals, natural disasters, and even conflicts with other humans had trained them to respond quickly, adaptively, and strategically. The humans were calm, deliberate, and prepared not for immediate attack, but for whatever challenges might arise. When the extremist fleets made their move, they did so with aggression and arrogance. Their ships tried to cut off the humans' path, aiming to force them into a defensive position or, if necessary, destroy them entirely. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. Many expected the humans to retaliate with overwhelming force. After all, any Deathworld species capable of surviving their homeworld and building interstellar ships would logically have weaponry to match, the Council thought. Yet the humans did not respond in kind. Instead, they displayed a combination of restraint, intelligence, and tactical mastery that left observers bewildered. Rather than firing indiscriminately or engaging in reckless combat, the humans focused on disabling the attacking vessels with precise non-lethal strikes. They targeted propulsion systems, communication arrays, and weapon systems, avoiding unnecessary casualties. Their actions were careful, calculated, and almost surgical. It was not aggression for the sake of aggression. It was defense executed with a level of skill that the galaxy had rarely seen. Entire fleets watched as their aggressive maneuvers were neutralized without destruction or panic. The humans' control over their ship and the situation was flawless. And their calm composure under threat became the defining characteristic of this critical moment. The extremists were unprepared for this. They had assumed the humans would either flee or retaliate violently. Instead, the humans' strategic discipline forced them into a position of vulnerability. Ships designed to intimidate were suddenly exposed, their weaknesses revealed without the humans ever needing to engage in lethal combat. Analysts across the galaxy scrambled to understand how a species from a death world could demonstrate both immense physical resilience and such remarkable tactical intelligence. The combination was unprecedented. While the extremists struggled, the Council and other observers realized something profound. The humans' restraint was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign of deliberate choice. They could have destroyed the attacking fleets in moments, but they did not. They could have acted on impulse or fear, but instead they demonstrated patience, control, and strategic thinking. This forced the galaxy to reconsider everything it thought it knew about Deathworld. The species that everyone assumed would be chaotic, violent, and reckless was instead disciplined, intelligent, and morally aware. Reports and transmissions from the human ship during this escalation further emphasized their approach. Captain Morgan communicated with the extremist fleets, warning them of the consequences of continued aggression but offering paths for He did not threaten. He did not issue ultimatums. He spoke plainly, calmly, and logically. His words carried authority not because of coercion but because of clarity, composure, and the undeniable demonstration of capability. Observers across the galaxy were stunned. Here was a species capable of surviving unimaginable danger, neutralizing a threatening fleet, and still choosing diplomacy over destruction. That the escalation reached its peak when one of the extremist fleets attempted a desperate maneuver to force the humans into combat. They accelerated toward the human ship at speeds designed to overwhelm its defenses. Human sensors immediately detected the threat, and the crew executed maneuvers with astonishing precision. Using the ship's superior agility, shields, and understanding of physics, they evaded the attack while simultaneously neutralizing the fleet's weapon systems. Entire sections of the extremist formation were rendered immobile, their ships trapped without destruction. The galaxy witnessed a species from a supposedly weak planet controlling a high-stakes encounter with unmatched skill. During this moment, the humans also demonstrated another unique capability: adaptability under stress. In addition to their physical and technical skills, they displayed remarkable problem-solving abilities. When unexpected complications arose, ships breaking formation, environmental hazards, or communication interference, the crew adjusted in real time. Plans were altered, strategies shifted, and actions were executed flawlessly without hesitation or panic. It was a display of resilience and intelligence that no simulation, report, or prior knowledge could have predicted. For the first time, many observers realized that the humans were not just strong, they were unpredictable in the best possible way. The galaxy's reaction to this escalation was immediate. Councils, military strategists, and scientists scrambled to analyze the humans' behavior. They debated long into the galactic night about the implications of such restraint combined with strength. Military leaders worried that a species capable of surviving Deathworld conditions could challenge any fleet if provoked. Diplomats saw opportunity, noting that the humans had not responded with hostility despite clear provocation. Historians compared the humans' actions to legends of ancient Deathworld species, noting that none had displayed this combination of intelligence, discipline, and ethical decision-making. Across the galaxy, every faction recognized that the humans were rewriting the rules of interstellar engagement. Meanwhile, the humans maintained their calm focus. They were not distracted by the spectacle or the attention of the galaxy. Their priority remained clear: to navigate the situation safely, minimize conflict, and demonstrate both capability and restraint. Every action reinforced the perception that the humans were not only survivors but thinkers, strategists, and moral agents. They were capable of immense destruction, but they chose to exercise control over their power. This moral dimension, combined with their physical and technical mastery, created a paradigm shift in how the galaxy understood Deathworlders. The extremists eventually realized that continued aggression would be disastrous. Their attempts to provoke the humans had failed. Not only had the humans neutralized their fleets without unnecessary destruction, but they had also communicated clearly, demonstrating awareness, intelligence, and moral reasoning. Confronted with this combination of skill and restraint, the extremist commanders had no choice but to withdraw, their pride wounded and their assumptions shattered. For the first time, a Deathworld species had shown the galaxy that it was possible to be incredibly strong without being reckless or violent. Observers across multiple star systems documented every detail of the escalation. Reports emphasized that this was not an ordinary encounter. It was a critical moment that demonstrated the humans' unique approach to danger and conflict. They had faced overwhelming aggression, neutralized threats, maintained composure, and communicated diplomatically, all while under intense scrutiny. This moment would later be remembered as the first real indication to the galaxy that the humans were a species unlike any other, capable of surviving impossible conditions while still acting with intelligence and restraint. Analysts also noted the broader implications of this escalation. If humans could exercise such control in an immediate threat scenario, what could they achieve when faced with larger challenges, longer campaigns, or interstellar diplomacy? The escalation had revealed not just their strength, but their wisdom, adaptability, and ethical framework. The galaxy realized that humans could not be categorized by old models. They could not be predicted based solely on physical strength or planetary origin. They were an entirely new kind of species, capable of shaping interstellar relations in ways no one had anticipated. By the end of this critical moment, the humans had achieved something extraordinary. They had survived direct aggression from multiple hostile fleets. They had demonstrated unparalleled tactical skill and adaptability. They had maintained discipline and calm under extreme pressure, and they had done so without unnecessary violence, demonstrating that their strength was paired with intelligence and restraint. This combination left the galaxy both impressed and wary. The escalation, in essence, had rewritten the rules. Species that had once assumed superiority based on technology, fleet size, or history of conquest now realized that the humans represented a different kind of power, one that relied not only on physical strength but also on intelligence, adaptability, moral reasoning, and restraint. The galaxy had been challenged to rethink its assumptions, its fears, and its understanding of what it meant to be truly capable. By the end of this phase, the humans were no longer just a species from a death world. They were a force the galaxy could not ignore. Their actions had set the stage for future encounters, alliances, and conflicts, and they had proven that a Deathworld species could be not only strong and resilient but also wise, controlled, and profoundly influential. The escalation had shown that strength without control is dangerous, but strength with restraint is transformative, and the galaxy was now paying attention. After the tense and dramatic escalation, the galaxy began to realize that the humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. The extremist fleets had been neutralized, and their leaders were left shaken and bewildered. For the first time, civilizations that had spent centuries preparing for threats, building massive fleets, and establishing complex defense systems were forced to reconsider their assumptions about power, intelligence, and morality. The humans had not only survived a direct challenge, they had done so with a level of control and wisdom that stunned everyone observing. Following the confrontation, the Galactic Council convened an emergency summit. This was not a routine meeting. Entire fleets were placed on standby. Envoys from hundreds of civilizations attended, and the room was filled with a mixture of curiosity, fear, and anticipation. The humans had been formally invited to speak, and the galaxy waited to see how a species that had survived at death, outmaneuvered multiple fleets, and maintained perfect composure would present itself in diplomacy. Many expected arrogance, threats, or some form of power demonstration. What they received instead was something entirely different. Captain Elias Morgan and the human delegation arrived at the summit with quiet confidence. They made no dramatic gestures, fired no weapons, and demanded no special treatment. Their approach was calm, precise, and respectful. Their message was clear. Humans had come to participate in the galaxy's affairs, not as conquerors but as partners. They were willing to share knowledge, cooperate on scientific and technological projects, and offer their expertise in areas where their experiences might benefit other civilizations. This approach was almost unprecedented in galactic history. Most species that survived extreme environments either sought domination, isolation, or influence through intimidation. The humans, by contrast, offered cooperation first, demonstrating both strength and restraint. The humans began by presenting detailed accounts of their experiences on their homeworld. They described extreme climates, deadly diseases, violent predators, and countless natural disasters. They spoke of civilizations that had risen and fallen, of conflicts that had threatened entire species, and of innovations that had allowed survival against the odds. But humans did not boast about destruction or power. They shared these stories to illustrate resilience, adaptability, and problem-solving under pressure. The council and attending civilizations were captivated. Never before had a species conveyed strength through wisdom, experience, and cooperation rather than through threats or conquest. Beyond storytelling, the humans offered tangible assistance. They provided knowledge about surviving extreme environments, techniques for agriculture on inhospitable worlds, and solutions to energy production that were efficient and sustainable. They shared medical advancements derived from surviving deadly diseases and injuries on their planet, showing how technology could save countless lives. These offerings were practical, grounded, and clearly the product of species-wide ingenuity honed over millennia. Observers noted that this was not charity, it was a form of diplomacy that demonstrated both capability and goodwill. The council members, military leaders, and scientists present at the summit were forced to reconsider their assumptions once again. These humans had survived what no one else could, neutralized hostile forces without unnecessary violence, and now offered solutions and cooperation that could improve life across the galaxy. Their combination of strength, intelligence, and moral restraint created a new paradigm. That humans demonstrated that a species from a death world could be powerful yet ethical, strong yet compassionate. This duality had never been observed on such a scale, and it challenged centuries of prejudice and fear regarding dangerous planets and their inhabitants to further solidify their position. The humans recounted specific examples of their actions during the escalation. They detailed how they had neutralized hostile fleets with precision, avoiding unnecessary casualties, and how their decisions had been guided by both strategic necessity and ethical considerations. The audience was impressed by their ability to balance tactical effectiveness with moral responsibility, a trait that had been rare among Death World species. Observers began to understand that humans' strength lay not only in their physical resilience and technology, but in their capacity to make thoughtful, ethical decisions even under extreme pressure. During the summit, one particularly tense moment arose when representatives from the extremist fleets attempted to argue that the humans could not be trusted. They presented reports suggesting that the humans' restraint was temporary, that their survival instincts could turn into aggression if provoked. The humans responded calmly, presenting evidence from multiple engagements that demonstrated consistency in their behavior. They explained that they had the capability for aggression, but chose restraint because it served both survival and ethical principles. This reasoning, combined with clear examples, effectively silenced the skeptics. For many, it was the first time a Death World species had addressed the moral dimension of power in a way that demanded respect. The resolution of this phase extended beyond immediate diplomacy. The galaxy began to recognize the humans as a species capable of leadership and influence without domination. They were not conquerors seeking to impose control, nor were they fragile survivors who relied on external assistance. Instead, they were resilient, intelligent, and ethical, able to navigate extreme challenges while maintaining a clear moral compass. Their presence suggested a new model for interstellar relations, one in which strength could be paired with compassion, and survival with cooperation. One of the most remarkable moments in the resolution came when the humans offered assistance to the very fleets that had previously opposed them. Technical teams from the human ship provided guidance on repairing damaged systems, improving defensive capabilities, and mitigating environmental hazards on board. This act of goodwill was unprecedented. Instead of retaliating or asserting dominance, the humans extended practical help to their former adversaries. That galaxy took notice. Here was a species that could have punished aggression but chose to uplift, demonstrating both power and ethical responsibility simultaneously. The aftermath of these actions began to reshape interstellar politics. Civilizations that had once feared or dismissed Deathworlders now viewed humans as potential allies, leaders, and contributors to collective progress. Military planners began to reconsider strategies that relied solely on overwhelming force, acknowledging that humans introduced a new variable strength combined with intelligence and ethical judgment. Diplomats recognized that the humans' approach offered new avenues for treaties, trade, and joint exploration. Scientists and scholars eagerly requested cooperation, hoping to learn from humans' experience with extreme survival, adaptation, and problem-solving. The resolution phase also revealed another human quality that the galaxy had not anticipated: patience. Throughout the escalation and summit, the humans demonstrated remarkable self-control and the ability to wait for the right moment to act. They did not rush decisions, react impulsively, or allow pride to dictate behavior. Instead, they observed, calculated, and responded with deliberation. This patience, combined with capability, further distinguished them from other species that were accustomed to immediate action or reaction. Observers realized that the humans' success was not simply the result of physical toughness or advanced technology, it was also the product of discipline, foresight, and emotional intelligence. By the end of the resolution, it became clear that the humans had fundamentally changed the galaxy's understanding of death. They had demonstrated that survival on a harsh, unforgiving planet could produce not only resilience but also wisdom, cooperation, and moral responsibility. They had faced aggression, neutralized threats, and engaged in diplomacy without compromising their principles. The humans had arrived not as conquerors or invaders but as problem solvers, innovators, and partners capable of contributing meaningfully to the galaxy's future. The Council and attending civilizations began formalizing agreements with the humans, Treaties were drafted for peaceful exploration, knowledge exchange, and mutual assistance. Scientific collaborations were proposed, focusing on extreme environment survival, energy efficiency, and medical advancements. That humans were invited to participate in diplomatic councils, exploratory missions, and research projects. For many species, this level of inclusion for a previously unknown and misunderstood Deathworld species was unprecedented. The resolution phase had not only neutralized immediate threats but had also paved the way for long-term integration and cooperation. Observers noted that the humans' influence extended beyond practical matters. Their presence inspired a shift in mindset across civilizations. Fear of Deathworld species began to diminish, replaced by curiosity, respect, and even admiration. Philosophers, historians, and ethicists debated the implications of humans' approach to power, survival, and moral decision-making. Leaders considered new strategies that valued restraint, discipline, and ethical judgment as much as raw strength. The humans had, in essence, introduced a new model of behavior for interstellar species, one in which capability and morality could coexist, and where strength was measured not only by what a species could destroy but also by what it chose to protect. By the conclusion of the resolution phase, the galaxy had shifted from fear and suspicion to cautious respect and optimism. The humans were recognized as a species that could survive the harshest environments, face aggression without yielding to chaos, and engage in diplomacy without compromise of principle. The events had resolved the immediate crisis, neutralized the threats posed by extremist factions, and established a foundation for long-term cooperation. The humans had achieved what few species could. They had demonstrated that strength, intelligence, adaptability, and ethical behavior could coexist in a single, remarkable species. In the end, the resolution of this critical phase made it clear that the humans were not only survivors but leaders, innovators, and partners for the galaxy as a whole. Their actions had rewritten assumptions about what a Deathworld species could achieve. They had turned aggression into opportunity, fear into respect, and uncertainty into a new understanding of resilience and morality. The galaxy had paid attention, and it would never look at Deathworld the same way again. After the resolution of the immediate crisis and the humans' remarkable demonstration of both strength and restraint, the galaxy began to enter a new phase of understanding and reflection. The arrival of a species that had survived a Deathworld, neutralized hostile fleets without unnecessary violence, and engaged in diplomacy with clarity and calm had not only resolved the immediate conflicts but also left a lasting impact on the perceptions and policies of every civilization. The humans' actions had fundamentally altered how the galaxy thought about survival, power, morality, and cooperation, and the reverberations of their arrival were felt across systems, councils, and scholarly institutions. In the immediate aftermath, the extremist factions that had attempted to block or attack the human ship were left in a state of uncertainty and self-reflection. Their assumptions about the nature of Deathworlders, and the idea that such species were inherently chaotic or violent, had been proven wrong in the most striking way. Leaders who had advocated for aggressive intervention were forced to admit that their strategies had failed, not because of luck or superior numbers, but because they had misjudged an entire species. That humans had shown that their strength was not simply physical or technological, it was also ethical, strategic, and disciplined. This realization sparked debate and discussion across the galaxy, as former adversaries reassessed their attitudes and policies toward Deathworlders and other misunderstood species. Beyond the extremists, other civilizations began to recognize the broader significance of the humans' arrival. Scholars and historians pored over data, records, and transmissions from the humans' early journey into space. They analyzed patterns of behavior, decision-making processes, and the consistency of the humans' restraint even under extreme pressure. Many noted that the humans' approach combined elements that had rarely been observed together: physical resilience, intellectual adaptability, emotional intelligence, and ethical reasoning. It became clear that humans were not simply survivors, they were a species capable of shaping galactic affairs through wisdom, skill, and cooperation. Diplomats and political leaders began to adjust their policies accordingly. Treaties, trade agreements, and collaborative projects were proposed to include humans as partners. In many cases, civilizations that had previously ignored or dismissed Deathworlders now sought direct contact and engagement, recognizing that humans offered not only strategic value but also opportunities for scientific advancement and cultural exchange. Humans became symbols of a new model of interstellar interaction, one in which respect, dialogue, and collaboration could coexist with resilience, strength, and preparedness for danger. One of the most profound effects of the humans' arrival was the way they inspired reflection among species accustomed to fragile safety. Many civilizations had built societies around avoiding risk, mitigating threats, and maintaining strict control over their environments. They had rarely faced a species capable of thriving under extreme conditions while maintaining moral discipline and strategic intelligence. The humans' example challenged these societies to reconsider the balance between caution and courage, between safety and growth. Philosophers debated what it meant to be truly resilient, while educators and military leaders studied human history and behavior for lessons in adaptability, cooperation, and ethical decision-making under stress. The technological contributions of the humans also began to have tangible impacts. Their knowledge of surviving extreme environments, producing energy efficiently, and addressing medical crises allowed other civilizations to enhance their own capabilities. Planets previously considered marginal or hazardous became viable for colonization, exploration, or scientific research, thanks to human-developed techniques. Medical knowledge derived from humans, the ability to survive and recover from injuries or diseases that would be lethal to other species, saved countless lives and revolutionized healthcare across multiple star systems. In this way, the humans' influence extended far beyond diplomacy. They were actively improving the lives of species throughout the galaxy. The humans' moral and ethical framework became another point of reflection. By consistently exercising restraint, demonstrating fairness, and choosing cooperation over domination, they set a precedent for how power could be wielded responsibly. Leaders and strategists began to recognize that influence was not solely derived from military might or technological advantage, but could also emerge from consistency, ethics, and the ability to inspire trust. Across political systems, the humans' approach prompted discussions about the value of integrity, long-term planning, and respect for other species, even when faced with immediate danger. For the humans themselves, the aftermath offered both opportunity and responsibility. They were aware that their actions had shifted perceptions, created new alliances, and challenged old prejudices. As a species, they embraced the role of pioneers, not in the sense of conquest, but as exemplars of what could be achieved through resilience, intelligence, and ethical behavior. Their focus was on collaboration, exploration, and mutual growth, recognizing that the galaxy offered challenges that required both strength and careful judgment. Every decision, from diplomacy to scientific cooperation, was made with the understanding that their actions would shape perceptions and policies for generations. The arrival of the humans also inspired younger species and individuals across the galaxy. Stories of how a Deathworld species survived, adapted, and entered interstellar society became widely circulated. These narratives emphasized courage, ingenuity, and ethical choice, inspiring others to pursue knowledge, resilience, and cooperation rather than fear or aggression. The humans became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the harshest circumstances, a species could rise, learn, and contribute positively to the broader community. Across schools, academies, and media, the humans' journey became a reference point for ambition, perseverance, and moral clarity. As time passed, the humans' presence in galactic society became normalized, but their impact continued to resonate. Former adversaries found common ground with them, participating in joint projects, exploratory missions, and diplomatic initiatives. The galaxy began to embrace the idea that cooperation could coexist with strength, and that understanding and respect could emerge from encounters initially marked by fear and uncertainty. Humans, once underestimated and dismissed as chaotic death, were now recognized as a species that could teach, lead, and inspire without imposing dominance. The broader reflection across civilizations included lessons about the dangers of assumptions and prejudice. Many species had assumed that a Deathworlder must be violent, reckless, or unstable, but the humans' actions disproved these notions entirely. This led to a more open-minded approach toward other misunderstood or marginalized species. Scientists and explorers became more willing to investigate dangerous or extreme worlds. Political leaders considered alliances previously thought impossible, and philosophers debated the ethics of judging species by appearances or planetary origin. The humans' arrival had triggered a shift in consciousness, expanding the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to survive, thrive, and participate responsibly in interstellar society. In addition, the humans' influence extended into practical strategies for galactic governance and security. Their demonstration that aggression could be neutralized with skill, restraint, and ethical decision-making inspired new models for conflict resolution. Rather than relying solely on overwhelming force or punitive measures, species began to explore ways to anticipate threats, understand intentions, and engage adversaries with intelligence and fairness. This approach reduced unnecessary conflict, promoted stability, and highlighted the potential of combining strength with moral responsibility. Humans, in essence, had redefined what it meant to wield power responsibly. The aftermath also emphasized the value of adaptability. Humans had thrived not because they relied on a single strategy, technology, or trait, but because they were versatile. They could respond to extreme environmental challenges, tactical threats, and social dilemmas with intelligence, creativity, and judgment. Observers across the galaxy recognized that adaptability was as crucial as raw power. The humans' example encouraged other species to cultivate resilience, problem-solving skills, and strategic flexibility, reshaping education, training, and policy across multiple civilizations. Over time, the human story became a central reference point in galactic history. It was recounted not only as a tale of survival but as a lesson in character, intelligence, and ethical choice. The narrative emphasized that the strongest species were not those who dominated others, but those who could endure, adapt, and act with wisdom and integrity. For generations to come, the humans' arrival and actions would serve as a benchmark for behavior, strategy, and morality across the galaxy. Ultimately, the humans' impact in this aftermath phase was profound and multifaceted. They had transformed fear into respect, suspicion into curiosity, and potential conflict into cooperation. Their presence reshaped diplomacy, technology, ethics, and strategy, demonstrating that strength alone was not sufficient for influence, but that resilience combined with intelligence and moral judgment could redefine the future of an entire galaxy. Humans, once underestimated as dangerous death, had become a guiding example of what a species could achieve when it combined survival skills, strategic thinking, ethical behavior, and a willingness to cooperate. The reflection across the galaxy also inspired hope for civilizations accustomed to cautious stagnation or fear of the unknown. The humans' example offered a vision of what was possible. It showed that even the most dangerous worlds could produce life capable of greatness. It demonstrated that conflict could be managed without unnecessary bloodshed. It revealed that intelligence and ethics, when paired with resilience and skill, could shape the future of civilizations in profound and lasting ways. The humans' arrival was no longer simply an event, it was a turning point, a lesson, and a promise that the galaxy could be more than its fears. In the final analysis, the humans' journey through the escalation, resolution, and aftermath illustrated a new paradigm for the galaxy. They had shown that power could coexist with morality, that survival could coexist with cooperation, and that a Deathworld species could not only survive extreme conditions but also inspire, lead, and uplift others. Their presence reshaped interstellar society, influenced policy and strategy, and created a lasting legacy of respect, admiration, and cautious optimism. That humans were no longer just survivors, they were symbols, teachers, and catalysts for change across the galaxy. By the end of this phase, it was clear that the arrival of the humans would be remembered forever as a turning point in galactic history. Their actions had resolved immediate crises, inspired reflection and reform, and established a foundation for long-term cooperation, peace, and progress. The galaxy had paid attention when the Deathworlders arrived, and in doing so, it had discovered that strength, intelligence, resilience, and ethical judgment could coexist in a single species, transforming fear into respect and potential into hope.